Interval inversions can be very helpful. It's critical that you understand how to do them, but they can be very helpful later on when we're looking at chords and things as to how it's helpful to invert an interval. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to draw an interval. All right. First I'm going to do a third. Okay. So I have a D and an F. And I just chose natural, that happened naturally, but okay, fine. So if I wanted to invert the interval, what that means is I would take the note that's on bottom and I would move it to the top. So instead of D and F, I would have F and D. Well, that's going to give me two totally different answers as to what type of interval it is. So here I have a D, or I have a third of some sort. And is F in the major key of D? No, F sharp should be. So F sharp should be, but I have an F natural, so this is a minor third. But what's interesting is when I flip it up F to D, what interval do I have now? Well, I know that minor inverts to major and 3 inverts to 6. So I can easily figure out that an F to D is just a major sixth through my inversion. So here's an example. Let's say you get stuck with something like this. E flat and F. Is E flat in the key of F? Well, you know, I'm not really sure right now. Let me try to invert it and see what happens. E flat goes to the bottom, and then the F stays where it was, or stays where it is. Sorry, finale error. Okay, now when I look at that interval, is F in the key of E flat? Yeah, it is. I know that. That's a major second right there. Well, major inverts to minor, second inverts to 7. This interval is a minor 7. So that could be a great way to take an interval that you're kind of struggling with and trying to figure out what it is and invert it to come up with another interval. Of course, it is also the point of the lesson, learning how to invert. That minor goes to major, diminished goes to augmented, major and minor just flip, major, minor, minor, major, diminished, augmented, augmented, diminished, perfect to perfect. 1 goes to 8, 2 goes to 7, 3 goes to 6, and 4 goes to 5, and all those vice versa. So if you know those and you can invert an interval, you can also figure out a way to use it when you're struggling. Let's do one more example, and let's make it a pretty tough one. Let's take a look at G sharp. It's not going to let me. That's not going to let me do that. I'll key in the G sharp in a minute. A G sharp and let's go with E flat. Okay, so a G sharp and an E flat. Now bear with me while I try to put a sharp on that. Okay, so if I were to invert those two intervals, what I would do is I would take the E flat and I would put it on bottom. And I would put a G sharp on top. Now it's not showing the G sharp because it's carried through, but let's do that way. Okay, an E flat and a G sharp. Is G sharp in the key of E flat? No. What note is G? This note is too high, so I have here an augmented third. Well, augmented inverts to diminished, and 6 inverts, or 3 inverts to 6. So here I have a diminished 6. Now let's, just for fun, let's check that out and see if it's right. Is E flat in the key of E? No, it's not. Or in the key of G sharp? What note is in the key of G sharp? Ooh. All right, well, let's see. I need a G sharp, and I need to figure out the 6th scale degree. Let's go whole steps and half steps. A whole step above G sharp is A sharp. A whole step above A sharp is going to be B sharp. A half step above C sharp is going to be D sharp. A whole step above D sharp is E sharp. And a whole step above E sharp Oh wait, I said E sharp. There's my sixth. So an E sharp would be a major sixth. An E natural would be a minor sixth. An E flat would be a diminished sixth. So that shows you how you could take a crazy interval, and that's pretty hard to figure out. That was a multi-step process. But this one over here, and then inverting it, it made it a lot easier. So that's how inverting intervals can be successful and helpful to figuring out complicated intervals.